Here we are again, another video where you and I will bust some myths in The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Now, like always, I've been going through the comments of the previous video for new ideas, and many on this list were suggested by all of you. And yes, I do read the comments. I want this to be a fun experiment where we all work together, so please leave your ideas below. But now we will look at 15 brand new myths to see if they are true or false. So let's dive right in. Number 15. Now, one of the cool things we see in Tears of the Kingdom is the multi-level world, with an underground world, surface world, and even sky islands. However, sometimes getting from one to the other can be a bit tricky. However, luckily enough, we have quite a lot of ways of getting around. One of those is the air balloon, a zonai device that could be attached to something, and then using fire or wind, you can go high into the sky. But there's a problem. If you use a flame emitter, for example, it will use quite a lot of energy, and as soon as you run out of juice, you will come back down real fast. However, someone in the comments of the previous video actually pointed out you can use a torch and save yourself the hassle. But does that work? Well, knowing Nintendo and the logic of both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I would say yes. And after some testing, I can confirm that this just works. The torch will continue burning basically forever, and you can go really high. But as you can see here, there is a limiting factor. The balloon will at some point despawn, which was most likely put into the game to stop the player from breaking stuff. But the whole torch thing works really well. Like JonTron would say, if you do the thing, and you do it right, and don't mess it up, it works. It just works. Number 14. Alright, here we go. The most requested thing from the last video. Can a bokoblin reach a sky island? This is something I tested in the last one and I failed in my quest. However, it seems like it is possible. Now, I tried a couple of times myself and got really close once, and I didn't even use the bokoblin mask. I used a rock that had fallen from the sky, added some platforms, and then reversed it while the bokoblin was on it. This was a plan that was suggested by somebody in the comments, but for some reason the bokoblin just took damage constantly and died. And I also found out that I wouldn't have gone high enough. Now, I will admit I tried this like a million times, and each time I couldn't pull it off. However, someone else did. I was originally challenged by Master of Hyrule, but I wasn't the only one. He also asked Thorion, and where I failed, he succeeded. Actually, he made a small video on how to achieve all of this, and as you can see right here, with a bit of effort, bokoblins can actually reach sky islands. So clearly, this whole myth is true, which is pretty crazy. And again, shout out to Thorion for actually doing what I couldn't achieve. Number 13. Now, one thing that's a lot of fun in Tears of the Kingdom is fusing. It allows you to create loads of different weapons, but you can also use it on a shield. And one very popular combination is a shield with a spring or bomb, because if you shield surf, you will go high into the sky. However, some people in my comment section wondered if you could use them more than once. Normally, they explode or disappear after using them only one time. However, maybe the Forest Dweller shield could change all of this, because this weapon set has the following perk. Bursting materials attached to the tip can be reused again and again. So does this work with the shield? Well, after testing it with both springs and bombs, I have to say no. And that's because the shield actually doesn't have the special properties that the weapons have. And so anything you put on it has a one-time use, no matter what you do. So sadly enough, this one is false. Number 12. Now, at the end of the day, you can fuse a million and one things to a shield, and one of my favorites is elemental stuff. It allows for some great combat moves, but people in the comments section wanted me to try something different. Something that would be an expensive mistake. What happens if you fuse a Glio part to your shield? Now, obviously, you can use it to damage enemies with a shield bash, like any other elemental item, but some people also claim that it would deal damage when you block. block. But is this really true? Well, no. Sure, when you bash with the shield, it is extra aggressive and works well, but when you block, nothing really happens. So at the end of the day, you are better off sticking an elemental choo-choo jelly on your shield. Sure, it only works once, but it is a whole lot cheaper than wasting loads of Glio parts. Number 11. One thing I noticed a lot in the comment section is that people have a weird fascination with boomerangs. A lot of people wanted me to do all kinds of things with them, and one claim stood out. Someone said that you can't throw a boomerang anymore if you attach something that's too heavy. And that makes sense. At some point the thing won't fly anymore. I mean, the fact that a boomerang even works is magic. However, is this really a thing in the game? Well, I decided to test it using both a normal rock and something utterly massive like a piece of Sky Island. But did the boomerang behave differently? Well, no. To be honest, nothing changed. The boomerang still works. It just looks a bit silly with these massive pieces of rock attached to it. But aside from that, it is fine. So this one is false. Number 10. Food. We all need it. Without it, we will die horribly, starving for days before the hell finally ends. However, in Tears of the Kingdom, that's not a problem. But that doesn't mean food is useless. It's actually crucial. Without it, you will die quite quickly because man oh man, some enemies deal loads of damage. But some of the good food items can be quite annoying to collect. One of those is apples, because they are in a tree. So you need to knock down the tree or climb into it to grab them one by one. In the end, there are many ways of doing it, but all of them require a bit of effort. However, according to someone in the comments, there's a faster way of doing it using Ultra Hand and Auto Build. If you combine a bunch of apples together, then that will be saved in your Auto Build menu. And now, the next time you come across an apple tree, you just use Auto Build, and magically all the apples will come to you, and it requires no zonai at all. But does this work? Well, yes, and it's very easy and incredibly effective. This is actually an amazing trick that clearly isn't a myth. Number 9. One thing we have experimented with a lot so far is Octo Balloons, because they have some unique properties. I mean, they can make anything float. Well, that's what you would think at least, because as we have found out in the previous video, not everything works. And today we will look at another Octo Balloon myth, and this one was suggested by one of you in the comments. What happens if you combine a shield with an Octo Balloon and give it to an enemy? Does he fly up into the sky when he uses it, or does something special happen? Well, after trying this with a Moblin, I found out rather quickly that nothing really happens. Sure, the balloon pops, but that's kind of it. Really, nothing is happening here, and I just wasted an Octo Balloon. So yeah, this one is false. Number 8. Now, as mentioned before, people love boomerangs for some freaky reason. And I mean, I kind of get why. You can put an amazing item or something elemental on it, and then just throw it at a bunch of enemies. Or with a bomb, you can throw an explosive that's reusable if you miss. However, in my last video, I got a good comment. One that made me really curious as well. In Tears of the Kingdom, updrafts are very useful, mostly when using the paraglider. However, does this affect a boomerang? Would it fly up higher into the air or something? Well, after some testing, I sadly found out that nothing happens. The boomerang just flies normally. The updraft doesn't affect it in any way. It just goes and comes back. So this one is sadly enough false. Number 7. When running around the world, there's one character you will come across again and again. Addison, a man on a mission. A mission to put up a load of signs, and the player can help him achieve this. Now, some people say that he is just boring filler, but personally, I quite like the small engineering puzzles. You have to use materials that are found all around you to keep the sign in place, while Addison ties it down. And of course, some people in the comments section claimed that they found the perfect way to solve these puzzles. And one person claimed that using a Hoverstone is the best way of holding one of these signs up. Now, Hoverstones are zonai devices that stay in place when activated, and so you could put it below the sign and it will keep it upright. But does this really work? Well, yes, it actually works incredibly well as long as you position it correctly. Although sometimes you have to add some extra bits here and there. But most of the time, you can do it with just a Hoverstone. So this one is true. Number 6. Now the next thing we will look at is just crazy. Something that is beyond insane. As most of you have seen by now, there are loads of glitches in Tears of the Kingdom due to all the mechanics that can be exploited. And while some old stuff that was seen in Breath of the Wild was patched out, like whistle sprinting, brand new glitches popped up in the sequel. A bit like Ocarina of Time and its 3D remake. Here we also saw this. But anyway, in one of my previous videos I was talking about the idea of dual wielding in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and whether that's possible. And for the most part, the answer was no. But now, some people claim that there's a glitch that makes it possible called zuggling. It's a trick that involves duplicating and some sort of stacking of weapons. So when you strike, you will actually hit with multiple weapons at once. But is this actually in the game? Well, yes, and it's actually used by speedrunners a lot. Although it seems like it was patched out by Nintendo. However, the big question is this really dual wielding? Well, I guess? You can see that Link has 2 weapons in one hand. Now, this isn't exactly what I had in mind, but technically, Link is holding 2 or more weapons at once, so I guess this myth is sort of true. Number 5. Now, one downside of the Nintendo Switch in 2023 is that the device is quite weak, which can lead to some performance issues and lackluster graphics. However, the biggest problem in my opinion is the render distance. You can create a vehicle and it will quite quickly despawn if you walk away. But are there ways to prevent this? Well, yes. Star fragments work really well for this at night, however not during the day sadly enough. So there must be something better, right? Well, according to the comments in the last video, there is. A viewer said that adding a Glio part to something would stop it from despawning when you walk away for a bit. However, after testing, it turns out that this isn't true at all. And as soon as it's out of sight, the game will basically get rid of it. So it seems like the only trick to prevent despawning involves a star fragment, while these Glio parts do basically nothing. So this myth is false. Number 4. Now, in these videos, we also experimented a lot with shield surfing, because there must be a way to make it even better, right? Well, yes, and some of those were shown off in the previous video, and today we are looking at a new one. What happens if you fuse coarse honey to your shield? I mean, honey is as slippery as it gets, so maybe it helps. Well, that's what my thought process was at least. But after testing this one, I found out that honey does the complete opposite. It actually makes shield surfing impossible. Each time you try to do so, you will fall to the ground. Hard. And I mean, I kinda get why. You do fuse the whole hive to your shield, and obviously that creates instability, and so you will fall again and again and again. So sadly enough, this myth is also 100% false. Number 3. Now, sure, the whole honey thing didn't work and was a bit dumb. However, you might understand why I tried it. But luckily enough, this wasn't the only idea, because in the comments section, someone suggested something interesting. In the game, the zonai device, known as the wing, allows you to glide through the air, and this way you can go pretty far. But what happens if you combine this thing with a shield? Would it allow for some form of gliding when shield surfing? Well, after some testing, I found out that while it does allow for shield surfing, it doesn't really work. Sure, it does give you a bit more height when you jump into the shield surf, which can be handy, because it does allow you to go into a flurry rush with your bow, which you normally can't do. But what happens if you jump off a sky island? Does this create some sort of gliding effect? Well, I tested this as well, because I expected people in the comments to ask for this for sure. And sadly enough, nothing changes. You will still go straight down and instantly die when you hit the ground. So, this myth is false. Adding a wing to your shield does something, but it doesn't allow you to fly or glide. Number 2. Now, in Tears of the Kingdom, you will come across a number of new enemies that weren't seen in the previous game, and one that is beyond terrifying and hard to deal with is the Gloom Hand, an actual demon that tries to draw you into the underworld. Now, most people use either ice or bombs to deal with them, and for the most part, this works really well. But it could always be better, and so after looking into claims in the comment section, I found a good one. A claim that makes a lot of sense and would save us an immense amount of effort as well as resources when fighting Gloom Hands. Apparently, if you put a Sundelion on your arrow and shoot a Gloom Hand with it, then they will disappear. As you can imagine, this would be incredibly useful. However, after some testing, I have to say it's fake. Sure, the arrow does damage, but it doesn't kill them instantly or deal enhanced damage. But maybe one day, we will find an incredibly effective way of beating them. Number 1. Alright, torture is never a good thing, however I know all of you are big fans of it as soon as you see a Korok. And so, due to popular demand, here we are again, using a poor Korok for a horrible experiment. Now today we will test whether Octorock Balloons work on this little guy here, and if they do, how high will he go? Now when I threw an Octorock Balloon on the Korok, it immediately attached itself and went up into the sky. So clearly it works! You can make Koroks fly using Octorock Balloons. However, now the big question is, how far can we push this? Well, as you can imagine, you can attach quite a lot of balloons to a Korok, and the more you put on, the higher he will go and the faster he will go. But at some point, the party ends. The balloons pop and the Korok falls down. So sadly enough, we can't open our Korok space program just yet. But the myth is 100% real. So I get why people ask for this one in the comments. Now these were all the myths we had for today. But please give me suggestions in the comments down below. I want this to be a thing we all do together. And don't forget, I have 2 other myth-busting videos, so be sure to check those out if you haven't yet. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me any feedback, suggestions, or whatever in the comment section. So far, a lot of your suggestions and comments and feedback points and other stuff have really helped and improved the videos, in my opinion. And they're doing really well, so I'm glad you're all liking these videos. I put a good amount of effort into it all. I record all the stuff, I test it, and, you know, so I'm glad they're doing well. Thank you all so much for this. I appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe, click the bell button, like, do all the good stuff. More content on the way. So, I hope to see you all in the next one, okay? Bye, little children! A bit of a Scooby, but not as good.